Again, thank you for all your assistance in making this happen for us. Our next speaker brings both legal and financial expertise to the international real estate transaction, having worked for over 30 years. That's not possible now. Structuring complex deals for his international clientele. Originally from Turkey, and here with us to share his wealth of knowledge on Turks as investors, please help me welcome Mel Dogan.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank MANAR and Citibank for hosting this event, and happy to see a great turnout today. I wanted to share my experience, yes, over 30 years, even though it may not seem so, it goes by so quickly. Just a few facts about Turkey and Turks to better understand the nature of the investor. Right now, the population in Turkey is about 79 million. And in 2020, it's forecast to reach 90 million and will overtake Germany, which has a population today of $82 million, and where there is a decline in population. One of the reasons that the EU is very trepidatious of bringing Turkey in is that a lot of its regulations give countries with larger populations a greater role in determining EU policy. So that's one of the reasons I think that Turkey, among others, has been given a little bit of a cold shoulder. But nevertheless, right now, per capita income is about $8,500. It's the 17th economy in the world now. On the most recent Forbes list, there was 40 Turkish billionaires in every single industry, from banking to shipping. Basically, on my research, we have about 10,000 millionaires in Turkey. The first 6 months in 2011, the growth rate was about 10%. It's going to slack off in the latter part of the last 6 months. So for this year, there's an average combined growth rate of 7 to 8%. One thing important to understand about the Turkish economy is that about 40% of the economy is a cash economy. It's underground. So that has fueled a lot of real estate investment in Turkey itself, and has helped people to branch out. Because of the problems with the EU, a lot of Turks now look warmly at the United States as a friendly investment atmosphere. In Turkey, closings do not take place at a lawyer's office or a title company. It usually takes place at the deed registrar's office, and what usually happens is somebody comes in with the money, usually in a suitcase of cash, and somebody has a pen to sign the deed book. And sometimes there's comical scenarios where somebody says, sign the book and I'll give you the cash, and the other person says, give me the cash and I'll sign the book, because once you sign the book, that's it. And unlike the United States, the deed is produced after the book is signed, whereas in the United States, we sign the deed, which is later recorded and registered. Also, there is no title insurance in Turkey, so people rely heavily on the deed registrar records for what goes on. One of the things you should also be aware, the Turkish real estate market is a quite lucrative market. There's about 100,000 units of new housing built every year in and around Istanbul, which has a population of 12 million. And just in my experience with my Turkish buyers who have purchased in New York, their usual complaint is they make more money back home than here. But they buy for other reasons, for diversity of portfolio investment. One thing to understand about Istanbul, it's very akin to New York, because Istanbul, like New York, was a melting pot for hundreds of years. You had over 30 languages, 20 different religions being practiced, layer upon layer of civilization. So you have Greek Revival construction, you have Renaissance, Italian Renaissance architecture, you have French ornate buildings all over Istanbul. So the Turks themselves have been exposed to a very multicultural society for years, and that's one of the reasons that they like New York and they come to New York. Right now, luxury units in Turkey sell from about $800 to $1,500 per square foot, and middle-income units sell for about $200 to $800 per square foot. And right now, there's a little bit of a glut in the middle-income market. There's been so much overbuilding there that things have slowed down there, but the luxury market is still very, very strong, and the reason for that is a lot of people from the East who become wealthy move to the Istanbul market, and from the Istanbul market, they branch out into the world. Basically, favorite countries of investment have been Germany, England, and the United States. Just to touch upon the office market, unlike New York, where offices are rented, in Turkey they're sold. So a lot of people buy their own office rather than paying rent. But we have seen with the influx of large corporations like Microsoft and Coca-Cola and Pfizer, that the office rental market is now growing as well. Until about 5-6 years ago, there was no mortgage market in Turkey. People who needed financing had to go and get a commercial loan based on their business in order to buy a house. And in 2007, the government changed that, and right now, together with OPIC, the government has instituted a project where they have enabling mortgages, but only for the middle-income units. And generally, because of this underground economy, which is 40% of Turkish economy, Turks are usually all cash buyers. And this also carries through to the international marketplace to the great extent. What I have experienced, talking again about last 10 years, there's usually about 100 acquisitions in New York of condos mostly, by Turks. They could be divided into two classes, 50% purchased all cash and 50% purchased with some form of financing. Years ago, there was no mortgage financing for foreigners. I remember in the 80s, what we had to do is some of these Turks had bank accounts in Switzerland. We would get a bank guarantee or a letter of credit, and that bank would do a back-to-back with a correspondent bank here or its own bank here. And then every year, that paper will be rolled over. And it was a quasi-mortgage. But since the early 90s, a lot of mortgage products came on, and they're constantly evolving, even through this economic crisis here. In the last 25 years, there's been only a handful of developers who have come into the market, and they've had their shares of interesting experiences. I remember one we worked with had purchased a row of townhouses on Central Park West, and a week after the purchase, they were landmarked. Welcome to New York. And as a result, litigation ensued, and we were able to overturn the landmark designation for economic necessity because the court couldn't believe that someone would have overpaid for that property in the amount that this developer did. So that was an exemption under the landmark law. The same developer, just to bring it full circle, has been prevailing in the New York market, and basically constructed the first phase of the High Line and is now building a building on 56 in Lexington, which will be a hotel and about 50 condos on top. There was another developer that came in, a German Turk, who invested in the ill-fated One Madison Park, and he lasted only about 2 years and was able to pull his money out. So those are basically two major situations that I know of. Why do Turks purchase in New York? Well, one is an anchor investment, insurance policy against volatility at home and hedge against currency fluctuations of Turkish lira. In the beginning of 2000, the Prime Minister took the lira off the IMF peg, and the lira crashed. And so the Turks, in not too distant memory, have experienced that and a loss of value of their money and their real estate at home. So that's one of the reasons they would come to New York and invest. The other reason they buy is family needs. On the average, there's usually about 500 incoming Columbia and NYU Turkish students. The organizations are very large and active, and many of those families buy homes for their children. Another reason the Turks come in, they read about the economic problems in New York, and they think this is a depressed market, that, you know, that deeds are being handed out for pennies on the dollar, but they're quite surprised when they come here and see that that's not the case. And they also have what I call sticker shock on the size of New York units. The Turks families are usually used to large 4 or 5 bedroom homes, and when they come here and see what they could buy for 2-bedroom apartments and the price, they're really taken aback. They usually like to have a maid's room or for their tea service, someone to serve them tea, so it's quite interesting. As Mr. Mermelstein mentioned, the Turks are very, very good negotiators. They're very well educated. Like all buyers, they fake right, go left. And we've been surprised a few times in their negotiation tactics, and we always learn a few things. Bringing in money into the United States is not a problem for Turks. We haven't experienced any money transfers. Where the problems do come up is where we have dual citizens, Turkish and U.S. citizens. There's some new issues that have arisen, so one needs to take care in looking at those issues. And for the brokerage community, just in terms of how do I tap into the Turkish market, I could give you a few tips. There is a couple of Turkish papers which are published locally here, and which, when Turks visit, they all read. One is Hürriyet, and the other one is Sabah. I've also seen that some roadshow trips have been successful. If you have a new project, a new development project, it's not a bad idea to go and rent a room at the Four Seasons and invite some people and show the building off. The third thing that's important, I think, is what has already been mentioned. You really need to have at least somebody who speaks the language, and whether that's the legal person, tax person, or the banking person. And if you could arrange that, it'll make the transaction go much easier for everybody. So I'll be happy to answer questions later on. Thank you.